Welcome to the Kairos Wisdom Keepers podcast, where ancient wisdom meets the modern healer. In our podcast, we share how ancestral soul wisdom and cyclical living support today's healers in activating greater wealth, health, intuition, and spiritual connection.
Hello, and welcome to our fourth episode of the Kairos Wisdom Keepers podcast, creating cyclical rituals with Gaia. I'm Janet Raftis.
And I'm Ina Lukas. And today we'll be talking about different ways to ritually engage with Gaia to strengthen your intuition and spiritual connection.
Yeah, and we love ritual. We love ritual,
Yes, we
love ceremony. We love all the stuff. So what is ritual? Well, it's something that you do over and over that has meaning to you. And we have a lot of unconscious rituals in our society. I mean, anything that you do repeatedly. So drinking your morning cup of warm beverage, some are healthy, as in going outdoors in the morning, greeting the sunrise. Some can be unhealthy, like smoking a cigarette every time you have sex. Sex part being healthy, cigarette part maybe not so much. So when you do these things over and over again, they provide you with some sort of comfort. It's a rhythm, right? It's a rhythm that provides you with structure and comfort and connection. Now, we are talking here about sacred ritual. So we're talking about engaging in a conversation with Gaia on a repeated basis in a way that allows you to really feel your connection to her, to really communicate with her, to understand yourself as an aspect of source in a deeper and richer way. Now, a ceremony is similar, but it's usually a one-off experience. It's a wedding, it's a birth, it's a moon ceremony. Now, a moon ceremony could be both a moon ceremony and a ritual. If you did a full moon ceremony every month, you would have the ceremony where you gather with a group of people, celebrate. You could do it on your own too, but you celebrate this connection to the moon and you set up a ceremony in a certain way that you may not do the same way again. Or you could do it every month and it would also be a ritual.
Yeah. And one of my favorite quotes from The Alchemist, who I channel, is ritual is the container through which the sacred flows.
Yeah.
So as Janet was saying, it creates, when you do something daily, weekly, monthly, with intention, you are creating a container. You're creating a consistency. It's like you're weaving a consciousness because you are intentionally bringing rhythm to something that is your way of having an intimate connection with the divine, an intimate connection with nature herself. And when you have that container, it creates a safe place. It creates this support system around you through which the sacred flows. So I think of like Waldorf education. One of the things I love about the Waldorf philosophy is the ritual that you bring into every day with your children, where there's a ritual and a rhythm, and there's singing, and there's, the transitions, and the nature tables where you're connecting with the seasons. And when you think of it from that childlike perspective, ritual and rhythm create safety in their nervous system. Mm-hmm. It allows them to feel supported by the ritual of the rhythm of their life while being able to flow creative energy through and be their wild childlike selves. And in a similar way, when we're connecting with ritual as adults, ritual in nature, we open up this conduit that it's like we plug in to something that is familiar. It's just something that holds us, and we open up to messages from the divine.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that so much. It's a way of interfacing with spirit. It's a conscious intersection of your humanness with your divinity. And ritual really amplifies this interface. So when it's sacred at any rate, and there is that unconscious ritual that we talked about before, and there is this conscious ritual. When you are engaged in this conscious ritual, in a way that Ina was just describing, where you're really held in this rhythm, you can relax into it. And when you relax into it, what happens is that you become this open channel, this vessel through which the divine can pour herself through you, where she can know herself more freely through you. Because, of course, you are an aspect of the divine. You are God, you are goddess. And also, when we hold ourselves in rigidity, we have a hard time really feeling the full expression of that. Ritual gives us a space where we can surrender to this connection, where we can feel ourselves as a part of the divine, as a part of Gaia, as a part of Gaia's ecosystem. And in that connection, in that surrender, we really allow for all that is source to flow through us, to really feel our connection to her. And this is when we start to get the messages and the downloads and the healing and all that she has to offer us as the creative life force energy that she is, and that we are as extensions of her. So this type of connection with Gaia is going to amplify your creative energy as well.
Yes. I love all of that. So when you are in a practice of ritual, of sacred reverence, of having an intentional process of going outside in the morning at sunrise, of taking the sunlight into your eyes, of listening to the insects and the birds and the wind, and looking at the light through the trees and watching the movements, the sounds of the animals around you. All of that is a deepening of connection to Gaia herself. And part of this is realizing how disconnected we are right now. We're so connected to screens in general and disconnected from nature, which means we are losing connection with the wisdom that is right outside our door, literally. And, this is what we're talking about in the Wisdom Keepers is when you allow yourself to connect deeply with nature in a ritual way, there is wisdom. There is so much wisdom in the trees, in the insects, in the animals, in the flowers, in the interaction of all of them together. And you have more information than the World Wide Web just by stepping outside your door. You have access to infinity when you are dropped in and listening in that way. So being in ritual with nature, it creates this intimate relationship with Source herself. It creates an intimate relationship with this incredible ecosystem that we live in, that we are a part of. We are not separate from it.
Yeah. I'm reminded of a quote from Megan Watterson, and she says something in her book, Mary Magdalene Revealed, or in Reveal. Anyway, in one of her books, she says, the body is the soul's chance to be here. And I love that so much. And Gaia, the earth, is goddess's chance to be here. We are goddess's chance to be here. All of us that are in matter, whether it's me, you, the deer, the rabbits, the birds, the bees, right? Or the actual soil of Gaia. We're all manifestations of the divine. We are all aspects of the goddess knowing herself through form. We are all the ecosystem. The entire universe is the ecosystem of Gaia, of the body of the goddess, right? The goddess itself, source energy itself. And she will know herself through her creations. And so when we enter into this really conscious experience of ritualizing, communicating through sacred connection with Gaia, we begin to understand ourselves as these extensions of her. And we begin to understand how we are operating within this ecosystem and the entire ecosystem when we actually allow ourselves to be a part of it. So this is a big piece of what's happened in our society, is that we have become disconnected from her. And in disconnecting from her, we have become disconnected from so much wisdom, right? Talking about wisdom keepers and wisdom codes, because all of that, which is nature, holds its own unique wisdom codes. And when we interact with it consciously and reverently, we receive the information from that, the information from the soil, the information from the tree bark, the information from the bird calls, the information from the mist on our face, right? Or the position of the sun in the sky, the moon in the sky. All of that is communicating with us all of the time.
Yeah. So there are unconscious rituals, and there are that are more habits.
Yeah.
And there are conscious rituals. And it's so important to bring consciousness now more than ever to the direction in which you're facing, to the direction that you are choosing for your day, rather than getting pulled by notifications, by narratives, by all the information on the World Wide Web. It's information overload of a lot of information that isn't actually necessary, right?
Yeah.
And when you're out in nature, it's a completely different form of information that actually calms your nervous system, that regulates you, that reminds you who you are, that brings you back into your body. And so so the habit of waking up and looking at your phone immediately and scrolling is you are taking in information that generally dysregulates you, or triggers you, or creates cortisol rushes in your body, depending on what you're looking at with how you start your day. And that's really what sets your day up. Mm-hmm. So the importance of having your phone off in another room throughout the night, waking up, not even picking up your phone, not opening your computer for several hours, if possible, in the morning before you engage with the outside world. The outside world in that way distracts you from what you're here to connect with, right? So when you go outside and you connect in and ground and have your feet barefoot on the ground, listening to what the land is saying, listening to what the animals are saying. And then, Janet and I each have our own little processes of having our team meetings every morning with our non-physical teams that are our heavenly helpers, where, we're like, hiring our non-physical CEOs to help us, support us in whatever support we need for the day, or whatever thing we're working on. And outside in nature, it's this clear space where you can be listening, you can be surrendering, but you can also be the conductor of the creation of the magic of your life, because it's active engagement while simultaneously surrendering and passively listening and engaging, passively listening and engaging.
Yeah, I love that. And it's really important too to understand that when you're doing this, you're actually supporting your physical body, you're supporting your spiritual and emotional body, you're supporting every aspect of your system. And so you're out there and you're doing this thing that feels good for you. And also you're receiving the actual appropriate codes and the appropriate messages, right? So in our disconnect from Gaia and the ritual that we have for hundreds and thousands of years as humans had with Gaia, it's in our bones because our ancestry is connected to this type of ritual with Gaia. When we disconnect from that, what happens is we actually can suffer physical ailments, mental, emotional ailments, dysfunctions within our system because we push through. So we've gotten to this place in society where we're trying to produce like it's an everlasting summer, like every season summer. Like it's always like you've got to be on, you got to be launching, you got to be earning, you got to be going, you got to be working overtime, like all of these things, right? That's summer activity only, really. So what happens when you really drop into this way of interacting with Gaia and remembering that you are a part of the ecosystem, right? Is that you start to take your cues both consciously and subconsciously from the world around you, right? So what happens in winter? The bear hibernates, right? It becomes quiet. We go within, it gets dark early and it gets light late, right? And this is the dream time, the time to receive information from source. In the spring, it's pollinate time, right? All you have to do is look around and see all the bees with their little bee butts hanging out of the flowers. And like it's pollination time. In the summer, it's time to bloom and grow and be big, right? And then in the fall, it's time to like settle, let your leaves drop, start releasing those things. Like you've had your harvest, the harvest is behind you. And now you get to go into that release time that's going to take you into the fallow time. And so when we start to do this, what happens is we start to naturally attune to this and our cycles become much more innate. And then we can actually align with our innate wealth codes, our innate abundance codes in how we create. So that's going to bring on a different type of abundance that is experienced through ease rather than pushing.
Woot woot.
I mean, we all want that, right?
Yes, please.
I'll take that and that.
Yeah. So there are so many ways that you can create ritual in your life. It can be a morning ritual, afternoon. It can be an evening ritual. Mm-hmm. I have an evening ritual of being outside, this time of year, every night as the fireflies start rising out of the grass and being there like in this magical space of being with the fireflies emerging for their nightly dance and mating and that's the thing. It's seasonal. There's throughout the year, the sunlight hits your land differently. There's different areas that get that are more conducive to ritual at different times of the year. And so, my morning ritual changes based on sunlight. It changes like the location of it and the process of it changes with the seasons and how everything's interacting, in my yard. And so you could create an outdoor altar. You could have a seasonal altar. You could have an altar that is, created for something that you're wanting to create in your life, that you're wanting to bring into form. And every morning you're sitting outside with that altar where you're collecting different stones and feathers and crystals and, insect bodies and, these amazing offerings that you find from Gaia, and having that daily practice of consciously sitting at your altar outside. And that may shift. In winter, you can have indoor altars and outdoor altars. You can bring the outdoors in to your indoor altar. And all of this is about creating that deep sacred connection with the outside world that again, we're just so disconnected from. But it's like plugging into a battery, right? It recharges us, it refuels us, and it keeps us in alignment with our North Star.
Yeah, definitely. And that's a piece of it is, we can't always be outside, right? And if you live in a city, this may be that what Ina and I are talking about may not be as accessible for you. So what are ways that you can interface with Gaia, right? And really prioritizing that. No matter what, you can get outside to see the morning light. Well, I don't want to say no matter what. In most cases, you can get outside to see the morning light, see the sunset light. You can take light breaks throughout the day. These can be rituals that will really support your entire overall health. But you can also bring Gaia indoors, right? Like Ina and I both on our indoor altars have so much of Gaia, and it's a seasonal thing, right? So we'll bring in pieces, aspects of Gaia that we find, a feather or soil or, a fallen leaf or whatever. We have these on our altars, tree bark. We laugh about tree bark because I've got like a little obsession with tree bark. I love trees. I love trees. And so if I find tree bark on the ground, I will really, and if it's like an energy that I feel really connected to with that tree, I will bring that home and put it on my altar and communicate with it. Right. And to me, it's the same really as if I were to have my hand on the tree, right? You can put your hand on the tree and you can feel the bark. But when you do that, what you're also doing is you're communicating with the tree. You are now passing information back and forth with the tree and receiving the messages from the tree, the life force energy from that tree. Well, all of that is the tree is still encoded in its DNA and its energy are encoded in that bark. They're a part of that bark. And so you bring that bark in and you put it on your altar. And now that piece of bark is also communicating with everything on your altar, right? There's an energy field. It's a part of the energy field now on your altar. And so when you sit down for your ritual at your altar, you've got this energy field that's holding the keys of that bark, and it's holding the keys of the feather that you picked up, and all of these things are interacting and you're in that field, right? So even though you're not outside in Gaia, and I don't want to suggest this as a complete substitute because it is powerful to actually create ritual outside in Gaia, but it is an addition and it's a way to do it that can help with this creating more connection, right? Like it allows the outdoors to come indoors with us and to have some of that connection while we are actually in our homes.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah. So I hope you're getting the deepening of the connection and the deepening of the intention that you're bringing. And with rituals, it is so much about intention and focus. And in the abundance of the summer solstice episode, we started talking about working with water and putting water outside, letting it take in the sunlight, letting it take in the solstice sunlight, and that. You can bring water into your rituals. So, for example, you could leave your water out under the full moon. You can charge your water with either, daylight sun energy or moonlight energy, sun reflected energy, and you can put your intentions into the water. So you could have a water ritual that you do with the moons. You could have a water ritual that you do with the solstices, equinoxes, or whatever lights you up, right? And when you're putting that water out there, putting the intention, what is it that you're creating? On a new moon, that's where you're setting the seeds and creating intentions. On the full moon, what are you releasing? And putting intention in the water as you put it out, and then bringing that water into your ritual, drinking the water with intention, realizing that you're programming the water, the molecules, the crystals of the water shift based on intention. And so when you bring that water into your daily rituals, your monthly rituals, there is so much information in that you're consciously imbibing. It's very different than just chugging a glass of water, and not thinking about it versus as I take this water into my body, I'm feeling the intention, I'm feeling the release, and there's magic. There's like the magic of creation and life that is built into the structure of that water that shifts you on a cellular basis. It's structured water.
Yeah. And it's structured appropriately to the season, right? So it's been out in the sun and it's received the sunlight that is currently overhead. It's structured the water with those light codes and every other celestial code that is available at that time. And then you're imbibing that with consciousness, and it's activating that energy within you. It's nourishing you in that way, right? And so this is such a big part of what we do and what we teach, and doing this really positively impacts your health and your wealth. And in our next episode, we're actually going to talk about expanding into cyclical wealth. And this is a key concept of that, is like, how can we work with these cycles in a way that's sustainable, that promotes ease, and that allows you to really be in flow with universal nature, which is your nature. Your true nature is to flow with Gaia, to flow with source, right? So, yeah.
So good.
So good.
And if you're interested, we actually created a summer solstice ritual PDF that's just a free PDF that's a pretty extensive ritual, with a card pull, really, where you can create ceremony going into it. And we'd love for you to enjoy that ritual, to take part in it. If you're interested, we'll have the link to the PDF in the show notes below.
Yeah, that PDF too, it's an abundance ritual, because this really is the time of abundance, right? I mean, abundance can happen throughout the entire year. And also, this is the time where we're really growing what we're creating, right? It's the time of the mother goddess, the time of pregnancy. So you can think about it like that, right? And so when you do ritual cyclically, when you're in the summer season, you're like, what am I growing? Like, what are the crops in my field that I'm tending to, that I'm going to harvest in the fall? And so we did create this ritual with that in mind. And then we also have another favorite ritual that we do.
Yes. One of our favorite rituals for many years has been to gather hundreds of people together on the solstices, on the equinoxes, and create these channeled activations that come through during these portals. And so Janet and I did a really potent summer solstice activation that is this like deep clearing of the gunk that's keeping you from moving forward, and it just has a lot of energy of fire and creation and movement forward. People had some major clearings and breakthroughs during that activation.
Yeah.
And it's something you can listen to anytime. You can listen to it over and over again. But that, listening to an activation, that can be part of your ritual as you're connecting into the seasons. It can be part of your intention setting.
Yeah.
Right.
One of the really powerful outcomes of that activation is the alignment with your creative life force energy and how you create in the world. And so what we've noticed from the people who have done it already, and ourselves included, is this really powerful connection to our capacity as co-creators in this universe. And really, there's this impetus to weave your creation into manifestation. And so we're seeing already people who did that activation that are like, oh, I started doing this in my business, and I started doing that in my business, and now this is happening in my relationship. And right? Because they're actually not just dreaming their thing, they're actually in the process of tending to it and bringing it into reality. And that's what this season is all about. And we can forget that, right? And so this energy work will really support you in moving appropriately and doing the appropriate activities, which right now are preparing for the harvest, right?
Yeah.
So that you can be sustainably, naturally abundant.
Yeah. So what happens when you work with rituals? We hope that you're starting to get how when you work with ritual, you activate your intuition, your connection with Gaia, and ultimately over time, it's going to create your own abundant cycle and rhythm because you're dropping into the abundance, the rhythm of the seasons. It connects you more deeply to your own inner guidance and the messages from nature. It supports your overall wellness, your health and well-being are deeply impacted by these rituals with nature. And it helps you weave the actual fabric of creation. It's co-creatrix energy. You truly become the conductor of the creation of your life. It brings magic into your life. It brings sacredness into your life. It's such a beautiful exchange, and also with ritual, it's so important to realize that it's not just a one-way street. Like, you're receiving information, but you're also giving back. The importance of like bringing offerings to your altars, like feeling that connection with nature and giving back, feeling the reciprocity of your role as a human in nature. It's not just a taking, it's a giving and taking. And it's an exchange of energy. So always bringing that like currency of life and offering and generosity to whatever it is that you're bringing in.
Oh, I love that so much. I mean, such a big part of ritual is appreciation. It really is. It really puts you in that place of appreciating source, appreciating Gaia, appreciating yourself, appreciating how you co-create, how you are in communication, how you are constantly lovingly held by source energy itself. So we have
Reverence.
Yeah, it's so much reverence.
So much reverence and honoring.
Yeah. And reverence is good for the soul. Just gotta say.
It is medicine.
It is full on medicine. Energy. Yeah. So we have so much goodness coming your way, y'all. We're going to go so deep into how you can work with cycles to improve your health, improve your wealth, improve your intuition, your spiritual connection. And if you'd like to hear more, please connect with us. Follow us, Kairos Healers Academy on Instagram or any other social media channel. Like and subscribe. It means the world to us.
It really does. We so deeply appreciate connecting with all of you. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the Kairos Wisdom Keepers, where healers walk outside of time.